Welcome back to the Riverside Radio YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Menon. I am your Deputy Head of News right here at Riverside Radio. We've got another fantastic interview here for you today. I sat down with Chief Superintendent Sally Benatar. Now, before we get started with the interview, I must say how much of a privilege it was to sit down with Sally. She was the first ever female officer on the Prime Minister's Protection Team in 1999. She's big boss of all police in southwest London, and in 2012 she was on the Special Protection Team for VIPs for the Olympics. We spoke about policing during the lockdown, what policing with consent means, and how the police were dealing with domestic violence issues during this time. I hope you enjoy.
I'm Sally Benatar. I'm Chief Superintendent in the Metropolitan Police, and my job is the BCU Commander for South West London. So I lead the Police Command Unit that provides local policing for Kingston, Merton, Richmond and Wandsworth boroughs.
What are the challenges which the police force have faced during the lockdown?
We're all adapting to the lockdown and to the pandemic in the same way that the public are. But in terms of policing, we have the responsibility to use the health protection regulations in a sensible and balanced and proportionate way to make sure that members of the public do their best to stay at home, and except for essential travel. I would say that there has been a challenge to get the balance right, and our approach is to engage with the public, to explain, to encourage, and then only as a last resort to enforce the regulations. And the majority of people that we see who are out there for the reasons that are given in the legislation, so for exercise or for shopping or for caring for vulnerable people. And where they're not, then we explain and we encourage them to go back home. And in a few cases, we have enforced that legislation. And that's been consistent across London. Of course, it's a challenge simply because it's a different way of policing. We police with consent. That's very important, and we are doing our very best to get the balance right and to be proportionate. But we don't want to be heavy-handed with this legislation, but we do want to do what our role is.
Of course. So policing with consent is quite an interesting phrase when you think about it. Can you explain to our listeners just exactly what that means?
Yes, it's really important to us that, as Robert Peel said, we are the police of the public are the police, and consent rather than too much enforcement without the support of the public is not a position that we want to be in. But we have had a very clear steer from the chair of the National Police Chiefs Council, Martin Hewitt, and from our own commissioner and our command team about how we want to do that. And all our officers are committed to it.
One of the things I was wondering around when they're wandering around on the beat, or say if they're taking a patrol car out, how do they maintain those social distancing rules? Or do they kind of put their hands up and say, actually, we are frontline key workers. We just have to accept the fact that we're not going to be able to enforce social distancing?
Yes, I think there are times when that can't happen. For example, if they're doing an intelligence-led stop and search, or if they're arresting somebody, or if they're actually dealing with somebody who needs help at a very close distance. We have made sure that all our staff are equipped with personal protective equipment so that they can access it. So when they're out on patrol, they can access it. And of course, police officers and police staff, they are all members of the public as well. It's been very clear to me how many of them have family members who perhaps have health conditions or vulnerable. They all have concerns about what might they be doing and are they exposing themselves and their loved ones to the risk, which is why I'm so proud of how they're going about their work.
How are you going about the normal policing, as it were, during lockdown? What you would call your everyday bread and butter. Has it changed much, or are you still doing, as you pointed out, intelligence-led stop and search, or drug busts, say, and so on and so forth?
We are continuing to tackle drug dealers and to take knives off the streets and all the violence suppression activity that we do. Yes, of course, it has changed. There are fewer people on the streets. It's easier in some ways to spot people and who are up to things they shouldn't be up to. Some types of crime have significantly dropped, burglary, robbery, theft. We have, because our officers are still at work, we have managed to keep all our policing functions going. So we are still putting out our neighbourhood officers, our dedicated ward officers across the wards, violence suppression, the detectives, the investigators, and of course our 24-hour emergency response officers. One of the things we have noticed is there's been an increase in speeding, and we are doing more enforcement work in this area. So this is in all speed limit areas, whether it's 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, or on the faster roads. The area of domestic abuse as well. While we haven't seen a significant increase in the number of offences being reported to us, we are very mindful that calls to the National Domestic Abuse Helpline and also to local helplines and charities, the number of calls have significantly increased. So we are working very closely with partners in that area, and we are ready to deal with an increase.
Sure. So how you say you're ready to deal with an increase? How exactly has your, say, protocol changed for dealing with domestic violence cases now compared to before the lockdown? How are you approaching that now?
In a similar way to before, in that we make it an absolute priority to make an early arrest of the domestic abuse perpetrator. So one of the things that is very important for us to do is to respond as quickly as possible and to give the victim space by us arresting the suspect. And we're still continuing to do that. A lot of the focus is actually putting out the message to members of the public that there is help available. You are not alone, is the government's campaign on this, and it's absolutely right, you are not alone. And we would urge people to come forward and to report to us. But I don't know whether the fact that we haven't yet seen an increase is because people are not able to come forward at the moment. Certainly one of the changes that is in place is that if you need to dial 999 to report violence or abuse, then but you're not free to speak, then you can press the 55 button on your mobile phone, and the police operator will know that you need immediate help, but you're not in a position to speak. And that's an important message to get out there. And
it's quite a personal issue for you, domestic violence. As someone who's suffered from it in the past, what would you tell the public about it if they want to support their friends, or if they want to get in touch with the police directly? What message would you like to send out?
It's very important for me and to all of us, actually. My message would be to keep listening and to ask questions and to offer support, even if it is just to signpost friends or family to the National Domestic Abuse website. What I'd like to say is that domestic abuse is everyone's business. It happens behind closed doors, but if we don't tackle it and it's not dealt with, it can go on to the most serious of consequences. So we're talking about preventing homicides here. And it can start as coercive and controlling behaviour, emotional abuse, financial abuse. It doesn't have to start with violence. Every case is different. And you're absolutely right. My own personal experience, I am so happy that I'm no longer in an abusive and controlling marriage. And particularly in this lockdown period, where there's nowhere to hide. If you can't go out of your house, if you're living with somebody that you're scared of, or you have to walk on eggshells the whole time because you don't know how they're going to react. You don't know if they're going to react with violence or with verbal abuse. It's really hard, and that is why my message is call us and we will come.
I hope you enjoyed the interview. That was only around 10 minutes of a 40-minute interview. So if you have a hankering for more, please do tune in to riversideradio.com/listen at 4 p.m. today to hear the full 40-minute interview. Now, if you're a little late on the party, not to worry. I will be updating the box below with a listen back link on Mixcloud so you can listen at any time you want. Now, please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you do not miss any of the fantastic content we've got coming your way. And if you want to see some more of the work we've done, look at this link below. We interviewed one of the leading researchers in convalescent blood plasma in the UK. The interview is still very much up there, and you'll find all of the links to the radio interviews there as well.